welcome to Choosing Acceptance podcast with your host, Marie Mason. I am here to share some success stories and tips on how to overcome your learning disability so that you can turn your talents into a career. And I love to inspire children and parents and teachers with learning disabilities to go beyond their limits so that they can make a bigger impact in the world. Schedule a call to become a guest on our show at calendly.com/Marie V. Mason. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Choosing Acceptance podcast with your host, Marie Mason. We have a great show lined up for you, and you don't want to miss it. Today, I'm joined by my talented co-host, Ebuka Jestoc, who handles our video editing and voiceovers, plus the co-hosting for our show all the way from Nigeria. Welcome to our show, and we're so glad to have you. I just had to say this really funny thing before we get started. I was trying to sit there and do the practice sessions on my computer and without the headset, and the Google Home device thought I was saying its name and chimed in on one of my comments. So I am still kind of laughing from that, if that's why you see me laughing. Okay, so on today's episode, we'll be sharing some great tips on how to overcome your learning disability and turn your talents into a career. So stick around for the end of each episode when we will share some great resources to help you understand and improve your learning disabilities. I'm probably going to only share one resource for that and then one on the career. And then next week's episode is going to talk about some great resources and how to overcome dyscalculia on next week's episode. So you're going to get a lot more of that resources next week's show. Before we bring up our speaker today, I'm going to share some top tips of the week, and then we'll go to our commercial break. So just to recap on last week's episode, for the top tips of the week, we talked about redefining dyscalculia, and I talked about determining your purpose. On this week's show, our guest is going to talk about how to determine your career path. So on this week's episode of Top Tips of the Week, we're going to identify the 3 common signs of dyscalculia. So, let's talk about dyscalculia, and define it again. That is when someone has trouble with learning with math. It can really make it hard for them to understand numbers and do math problems into math symbols, right? That's the recap. So here are the 3 signs that somebody might have dyscalculia. And they include having trouble counting and organizing numbers, struggling with the basic math problems, and telling time and money management. Keep in mind that even if you recognize that you're struggling with one of these problems, it does not necessarily mean you have dyscalculia. You're going to have to get diagnosed properly to confirm whether or not you do. Sometimes, as I've said in some of my other podcasts and before, is that we can show signs of more than one learning disability or learning difficulty, but it doesn't mean that's our primary one. It might be a secondary one. So just keep that in mind, okay? And then with the right help, people with dyscalculia can do better both in math, also in school, as well as in work. So at the end of the show, we're going to actually share some valuable resources and tools that can help you to improve your math skills. Before we bring up our speaker today, here's a word from our sponsor. So take it away, Ebuka.
And now here is a word from one of our sponsors. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
Meet Marie Mason from Charlottesville, Virginia. She is a podcast consultant for Liberty Virtual Solutions. She empowers transformation coaches who want to boost their business with podcasts by brainstorming the content and structure of their podcast. Our proven podcast roadmap will help you to develop a strategy for launching your podcast so that you can grow your business. Rebring your podcast to life at libertyvirtualsolutions.com.
Welcome back to the Choosing Acceptance podcast with your co-host Ebuka Jestoc. We are excited to have you here with us again. The amazing Marie Mason has a varied and interesting career, from being a preschool teacher, an administrative assistant, a podcast consultant, to an author, a business strategy coach, international speaker, and a host for this podcast. Marie is passionate about inspiring people with learning disabilities to go beyond their limits and make a bigger impact in the world by turning their talents into a career. She has a wealth of knowledge and experiences to share with us today. Today's topic is how to determine your career path. Take it away, Marie.
Thank you, Ebuka. I'm really glad to have you here on the show to me, and I appreciate your great introduction.
It's my pleasure.
Awesome. So today on the Choosing Acceptance podcast, we are going to be talking about how to determine your career path. So many of us have special challenges when it comes to choosing a career, especially those with learning disabilities. In cases, I don't bring this up later. One of the things I've learned in my lifetime, having a learning disability, people don't always want to invest the time with somebody who has a learning disability to help them be successful in a career path. So that was something I faced in the 70s, 80s, 90s. I'm really hoping that in 2023 that we have taken care of some of that in the workforce, because I feel like people are a lot more aware of it than they used to be. So if you're still struggling with that and want to know how to work around that, please let me know. I will also do an episode on that as well. But just for this purpose, for today's episode, in this video, we're going to be discussing the 3 simple strategies on how to make the best career choices for you so that you can showcase your strengths. So let's get started. One top tip to keep in your mind, I have a little tongue twister there, is when you go looking for a job or career, is to focus on your strengths and not your weaknesses. It is always better to find a job where you can demonstrate your strengths. I can't emphasize that enough, apparently. So, Ebuka, have you ever listened to the latest episode of Choosing Your Acceptance podcast about how to determine your career?
No, I haven't. What is it about?
It's all about how to determine your career path, especially for those of us with learning disabilities.
That sounds interesting. I've always found it challenging to figure out what career path to take.
And me too. I agree. So I think it's important that we have a plan in place. I'm a big believer in making a plan. So the podcast really offers great tips and strategies on how to help us make the best career choices for ourselves and from the experts like career counselors.
That's great. What kind of tips do career counselors offer?
That's a great question, Ebuka. What kind of tips do career counselors offer? Love that question. Well, career counselors suggest doing some self-reflection to determine our strengths and determine your interests, as well as researching different career options. They really encourage to talking to people who are in those fields and are learning more about that job position and what it involves in terms of skills and tasks. Because you need to know a good description of what you're going to be doing day to day to see if it aligns with your beliefs and values. And that's another important tip. Make sure it aligns with your beliefs and values. And if it doesn't, find something else. Here's another tip. Always make sure, one of the things I was taught when I was job hunting, starting when I was in the 80s, and they suggested that I go and talk to people who have been in that career path or in that position that I'm looking to fill, and see what the pros and cons are, see what that person's lifestyle is like, see if what their experiences are, find out the truth, basically, dig deeper, ask good questions, and then see if it's something you really want to stick around with for the rest of your life. Because if you don't, go find something that better fits your values and beliefs and your skill sets and talents and your strengths, because you want to always be playing in your strengths, right? Now, you can always learn from your mistakes and things that are and weaknesses, but at the same time, make sure you have something that is something that you're always work on building your strengths up too. So some things that I have learned from job hunting over the years and things that I did when I was starting off, and some tips that I've learned along the way to add that more value to today's session.
Those are good points. It's important to know what we are good at and what we enjoy doing.
Thanks, Ebuka. And then, Ebuka, quick question for you. Have you ever struggled with choosing a career path?
Definitely. It can be overwhelming and difficult to figure out what you want to do for the rest of your life.
I completely agree. That's why I am so excited to talk about this topic today on Choosing Acceptance podcast. So specifically, I am interested in hearing your thoughts, Ebuka, about what business owners with learning disabilities struggle with the most in choosing a career. I'm also going to ask the audience these questions too.
I would be happy to add some value to that topic. I think one of the biggest challenges is determining what accommodations they may need in their chosen field. Which brings me to this question. What examples do you have of business owners with learning disabilities who are struggling in choosing a career?
Okay. I agree with that insight, Ebuka. So here are let me give you some examples of business owners with learning disabilities who are choosing or struggling to choose a career path that would be best suited for their learning disability. So the examples that come to mind is someone with dyslexia who struggles with reading and writing might want to consider not getting a job that requires a lot of reading and writing. Maybe they need to have something more hands-on. Or someone who is struggling with math like dyscalculia might want to stay away from jobs that require strong math skills and find something that is better suited for your skills and your talents.
That's a great point. How do individuals with learning disabilities determine their ideal career path?
I love this question, Ebuka. You had asked about how the individuals with learning disabilities determine their ideal career path. So the 3 simple strategies to determine your ideal career path are: 1, this important strategy is to identify their strengths and interests. 2nd, they need to also consider tasks that they excel at, like I was saying before, and also that includes what tasks that they might struggle with due to their learning disability or difficulty. And then 3, they can also research their career options to speak with professionals like career counselors in those fields to gain a better understanding of what that job entails. And that includes going to the person that you're applying for the job too. So you might want to go to like the human resources department, for example, and ask for a job description, and what that will give you the breakdown of what that job entails as far as the day-to-day skills and talent and stuff that you're going to need and required for that job.
That makes sense. What if they have trouble identifying their strengths and interests?
Great follow-up question. The question was, what if they had trouble identifying their strengths and interests? So, Ebuka, love your questions. There are assessments and tests that can help determine the strengths and interests so that it could take it online. And then so you don't have to take paper ones. And they can also speak with career counselors or mentors who can help them identify their strengths and weaknesses and guide them towards a suitable career path. I'm going to add one more, and that is you can also talk to, if you already have a job currently, you can also ask your supervisors at your workplace and even some of your coworkers that you're close to and that really know who you are, and ask them what they see are your strengths and weaknesses. And keep in mind when they're saying weaknesses, remember it's not supposed to be the pointing fingers kind of ones. It's more of to get feedback from them and take it as, take it less to heart. It's more of look at it as ways of improvement. These are where you can improve instead of the negative viewpoints of the weaknesses, because I feel like sometimes we shy away from hearing about our weaknesses, but sometimes that's good information to know how we can fix things, right? So take it as a positive and how it resonates.
That's a great idea. How can individuals with learning disabilities ensure they have the necessary accommodations to succeed in their careers?
Awesome question, and an important point, Ebuka, about the learning disabilities and how the individuals with learning disabilities ensure that they have the necessary accommodations to succeed in their careers. Let me see if I can answer this the best way. So once they've identified their ideal career, they should really speak with an employer, like I said earlier, or HR department to discuss the necessary accommodations, because this is something that's out of the ordinary that might be something that's separate from the normal kind of onboarding process for someone with a learning disability or difficulty. So you might want to ask for special accommodations like taking extra time for assignments, special software or equipment that might help you to be able to do your job performance better, and additional training or support during normal business hours would also be a good tip to include there. And then it's important for them to advocate for themselves and communicate their needs in order to succeed in their career. Don't just sit there and bottle up and not say anything to anybody, because people can't always read your minds and understand what you're going through. You need to be able to be clear to them. I need some additional support. This is what I need. Be specific. And if you don't know, say, can you help me figure out some of the things that would make my job easier? And maybe together you can troubleshoot some ideas. Sometimes passing it off somebody else always helps. So, like I said, there are ways to help get the things you need in order for you to perform your job better. Because the whole goal is to increase productivity in the workplace, right? When you're working in a career. And if they want you to do better, then you need to ask for the help that you need to get yourself better. But make sure you're doing the effort too. So those are my tips for that. Next question.
Do you have any tools that our audience can use to take free tests online?
Yes, I do have some tools. I can definitely give you some tools on how to take free tests online for today's episode, and that's the free personalities test, which is 16 personalities. I have used that to evaluate my team members personally and personalities and skill sets in the past. It's a very helpful tool, and it provides insights to the personalities and skill levels, and it's great for people who are job hunting too to evaluate themselves and say, what can I highlight as my strength. So it helps you give you that evaluation tip too. So there are tons of other tools out there that are both paid and free. Some of the paid ones are really, really good and more detailed and give you more valuable insights and have been useful too. But it just depends on what your budget is. And so you have to kind of take that into consideration, whether you're the employer or the employee. So if you're taking it as an employee and you're just getting started, or you're in between jobs, take the free personality tests and it might even give you some ideas too on some, when they do the skill set sections, it might give you some ideas of places you might want to look for a job. So always good to do that evaluation, self-evaluation, when you're in between jobs or when you're dealing with life changes like getting started in a career. So take that how it resonates. But hopefully it gives you some good tips. Ebuka, do you have any more questions for me?
Do you have a quick action tip that our audience can apply today?
Oh, quick action steps. Lovely question, Ebuka. My quick action step or tip is that you can apply right now is to sit down and really evaluate, like I was saying, your strengths and your weaknesses. It's important to know where you sit on that spectrum. So you can highlight the strengths on your resumes. Also promote yourself when you're at the job interviews and focusing on your strengths. They will also ask you about your weaknesses. So you need to be clear on how you answer that. And maybe we can talk about that on another topic later on in the show. But let's get the guidance from a guidance counselor who can really guide you into choosing a career path that's best suited for your strengths and learning disabilities. And you know what? Ask the guidance counselor after you've gotten to know them a few sessions and say, what strengths and observations do you have for my weaknesses as well? And that way, maybe you can get some ideas of their observations of your strengths and weaknesses, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Marie, for this valuable information.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And thank you, Ebuka, for bringing some amazing questions to today's show. It's been very helpful and interactive. Do you have any more questions for me? One last question?
Yes, I do. What are you offering our audience today?
Oh, what's my gift today? Excellent question. My offer today basically is to sharing about our supportive community, which actually is a mix of with teachers and professionals and parents, either with learning disabled children of all ages. Some might even have learning disabilities themselves. And you are welcome to join our private Facebook chat, which is Bubble Bears Books membership. Please join us there. It's all based through my book series. However, this community is what I'm building to help support people with getting resources and tips and really be able to connect with teachers and parents and so forth. I really would like to build and grow that community, and I really would love to see more activity in it. So I'm going to be putting a lot more attention into that coming in the months to come for this 2023. And the other book is my book. The other offer I have is my book. And I'm going to ask you this question. Ever wonder what it would be like to see it through the world eyes of a dyslexic child? Well, stick around to the end of the show for one of our sponsors, which is Bubble Bears Books, and that is going to be a book series on learning difficulties and learning disabilities. So go check out the description and grab your copy of our latest book, which is Bubble Bears Special Problem, and it's all about seeing it from dyslexic view of a child. And it's a really good, insightful book because you get to see what he sees and struggles with and what his wins are as well and what his successes. So love to get your feedback on it too. I am in the process of writing another one, so you'll be probably hearing more about that later in the year. So that pretty much wraps up my talk. So I'm going to let Ebuka go ahead and close out the show.
I want to thank our speaker, Marie Mason, for sharing valuable information on this topic on the Choosing Acceptance podcast. Please join us next week for great tips on how to overcome your learning disabilities and turn your talents into a career. We stream weekly on our YouTube channel and Facebook group where you can collect all of our offers. Please make sure you like, share and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching. And now here's a word from one of our sponsors. Have a great week, everyone. That ends this week's show.
Y'all have a great week. My name is Marie Mason. I am the author of Bubble Bear Special Problem. And this book destigmatizes learning disabilities in order to provide a better understanding of their learning disability process. It helps children to overcome their fear of learning disabilities so that they can contribute their talents by bringing awareness to how children should be treated in and out of the classroom. If you would like more to learn about this book, then go to Amazon.com and check out Bubble Bear Special Problem by Marie Mason.